And this is a developing story. There has been an explosion.
Absolutely shocking.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
The East Coast has been hit hard this week. Flooding affected parts of South Carolina overnight. It forced roads to close and created a sinkhole. More than 6 inches of rain slammed Maine yesterday. Standing water filled roads. Around 6,000 people lost power.
Syria's deadly civil war is now even more dangerous, with both the US and Russia launching airstrikes, but supporting different sides.
Oh God! So it's like flash flooding right now by Godwin. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. Yeah, no one can get into that lot.
A new wave of heavy rain and flooding threatened millions along the East Coast. Hurricane Joaquin has strengthened to a Category 3 storm. It is churning in the Atlantic and could make landfall in the United States over the coming days. Right now, Joaquin is pounding islands near the Bahamas with winds around 120 miles an hour. Virginia has already declared a state of emergency as the storm is expected to move north.
The East Coast has been hit hard this week. Flooding affected parts of South Carolina overnight. It forced roads to close and created a sinkhole. More than 6 inches of rain slammed Maine yesterday. Standing water filled roads. Around 6,000 people lost power.
And this morning in New Jersey, crews will be building massive sand barriers on the beaches to prepare for the possibility of serious flooding. Chief weather forecaster Lonnie Quinn of our New York station, WCBS, is tracking Joaquin as it approaches. Lonnie, what do you see? Good morning.
Gail, I see some really big changes out there, not only in the track and the intensity. Yesterday at this hour, I was talking to you about a tropical storm. Today, it's a hurricane with a pretty big number. Now, let's take a peek at the 5 o'clock numbers in from the National Hurricane Center. This is what it looks like on the infrared satellite picture. These are the numbers that go along with it. 120-mile-per-hour winds, a Cat 3 forecast to become a Cat 4 as it makes that all-important turn to the north, all right? Then it will travel up the eastern seaboard. Is it a landfall? Is it not a landfall? Both are possibilities today. It could be a landfall anywhere from North Carolina to Massachusetts. But there's also a possibility, at least, that it could stay out to sea. It's not a great possibility, but it's out there. Here are your spaghetti models, okay? Yesterday, you remember this, gang? All tightly bunched together around Virginia and North Carolina. Now, kind of all over the place, anywhere from North Carolina up to the east end of Long Island. And you did see 1 or 2 pushing out to sea. How is that possible? Well, it's all because there are so many different variables that we're dealing with this storm. High pressure, low pressure, another high pressure. This high If it sets up further offshore, that's your escape route. If it pushes further to shore, it's going to push the storm onshore. And then if this high drops in, that would kind of seal the deal and push it onshore. So we had a lot to watch, a lot to monitor. I'll be back with you with possibly another update that comes out in about an hour, so I'll see you guys then. But Nora, let's go over to you.
Good to know. Lonnie, thank you so much.
Whoa! Oh my goodness.
We have about, I would say, 2.5 meters.
Between like 12 o'clock in the morning and 3 in the morning, it was just like the heavens woke up and everything just came down. And yeah, you could just hear the whole house was shaking, and it was just so loud. My name is Corey Pierce, and I live right here. And last night we had the worst storm I've ever seen or heard of ever, and yeah, it was a mess. It's a real mess, and it's it was pretty wild last night. If you ever heard a 747 land or a massive train or a railroad train go by at a really high speed, it sounded like the earth was moving, everything was moving. The whole house shook. Everybody in the house woke up. It was just insane. It was like nothing I've ever seen before. It was really, I don't know I've never seen like this before in my life, and this is pretty wild. So.
Copy, active tutor, UCC 1140 Umpqua College Road. Within minutes of the shooting, terrified Umpqua Community College students took to social media. One saying students are running everywhere, holy God. Shortly after, police and rescue workers deployed, not knowing what they would find.
Somebody is outside one of the doors, shooting through the door. There is a female in the computer lab.
Umpqua Community College, home to more than 3,000 students, quickly put on lockdown and later evacuated. Information coming in piecemeal because the college is in such a remote location.
The suspect is down. We've got multiple gunshot wounds. We're going to need multiple ambulances on scene.
State police telling CNN law enforcement was able to detain the shooter.
Another community is waking up in shock after a deadly school shooting. This morning, investigators in Southwest Oregon are trying to learn why it happened. Thursday's rampage at Umpqua Community College left 10 people dead and 7 wounded. One of the dead is the gunman who was killed during a shootout with police. Survivors and their families say the killer asked people if they were Christians.
They would stand up and he said, good, because you're a Christian, you're going to see God in just about 1 second. And then he shot and killed them.
All the victims were in Snyder Hall on the campus in Southwest Oregon. John Blackstone is at the college in Roseburg. John, good morning.
Good morning. Well, this campus is now a crime scene and it's been ordered closed until Monday. The gunman's motive is still unclear, but what is clear is the devastating impact his actions have had on this tight-knit community.
Somebody is outside one of the doors, shooting through the door. We do have one female that has been shot at this time.
The first sign of trouble on the Umpqua campus was around 10:40 Thursday morning. Minutes later, the scope of the shooter's rampage was clear.
We have upwards of 20 victims.
This student says her teacher heard loud noises in the classroom next door.
She said, "Hey, is everyone okay over there?" And then as soon as she said that, multiple shots were fired. And when she turned and she looked at the classroom, the look on her face was horrifying, and that's when I knew something was wrong.
There were 3 more loud bangs, 3 or 4, and we all recognized that those were gunshots.
And when she looked at us, she said, "We have to get out now."
Law enforcement arrived on the scene 5 minutes after the first 911 call.
We do know that we have at least 2 heroic officers who responded into the building within minutes and exchanged gunfire with the suspect.
7 minutes after police got to the campus, the gunman was dead.
The suspect is down. We've got multiple gunshot wounds. We're going to need multiple ambulances on scene.
They will live forever in our hearts.
Hundreds of people attended a candlelight vigil in Roseburg late Thursday.
When you look around and see all this people,
it's amazing to turn out, but this is our community. This is who we are. This is who we are. Not what happened today.
Certainly a lot of tears shed at that vigil last night. Oregon's governor has ordered that flags at all state buildings here be flown at half staff until sunset today. Gail?
Thank you, John.
Pope Francis cheered by the masses during a U.S. tour packed with public appearances, but he also found time, we're now finding out, for a private visit.
It was really very humbling to even think that he would want to, meet me or know me.
Kim Davis, the Kentucky County Clerk jailed for refusing to issue same-sex marriage licenses, says she and her husband Joe spent time alone with the Pope in Washington, D.C.
I put my hand out, and he reached and he grabbed it, and I hugged him, and he hugged me, and he said, "Thank you for your courage."
Vatican spokesman Federico Lombardi isn't commenting on the visit, saying only that he won't deny that the meeting took place, and Davis's attorney won't say how the visit came together.
There's a lot of speculation as to how it came about and how did she get in and out without being seen by the media that was surrounding the Vatican embassy. I will say that the bigger issue is not how it happened, is that it did happen.
The couple left with rosaries blessed by by the pontiff. The meeting itself leaves a lasting impression.
I think what it does is reframe the narrative about Pope Francis a bit. I think up to this point, the narrative has been this is a progressive, maverick, sort of shaking up a deeply traditional church. And that's all true, but I think what's been missed is that while he's changing the tone, he's not changing the content of the church's message.
It wasn't the Pope's only private visit. Along with meeting church sex abuse survivors, during his 6-day stay in the U.S., he also met with the Little Sisters of the Poor, plaintiffs in a lawsuit against Obamacare's mandate for employees to be offered free contraception. None of those meetings were on the official schedule, but they reflect his broader public messages. On his return trip to Rome, reporters asked the Pope specifically about public officials who refused to carry out their duties as a matter of conscience. The pontiff reaffirmed his support but made no mention of the Rowan County clerk, saying, "I can say the conscientious objection is a right that is a part of every human right. It is a right." A message from the Holy Father further fueling Kim Davis's fight.
He told me before he left, he said, "Stay strong." That was a great encouragement. Just knowing that the Pope is on track, with what we're doing and agreeing, kind of validates everything.
The first Russian combat camera video of their airstrikes in Syria. Russian warplanes struck near the city of Homs in western Syria, an area where anti-government forces are operating, not ISIS, the terrorist group Russia claimed it was going after. Defense Secretary Ash Carter had been assembling a military team to talk to the Russians about how to keep U.S. and Russian pilots safe when they fly near each other. But earlier Wednesday, the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad got a sudden visit from a Russian general. So a Russian general shows up this morning at the embassy in Baghdad and apparently reads your people a note saying airstrikes are going to begin in 1 hour. Is this not a little bizarre?
This is not the kind of behavior that we should expect professionally from the Russian military professionally, and that's one reason why I think it's a good thing to have an avenue of communication that is less unprofessional than a drop-in.
The Russian general giving just 1 hour notice strikes were to begin and telling the Americans to keep their aircraft out of Syrian skies.
The Russians are using this opportunity to basically do their best to shove the U.S. out of the Middle East, and they're doing it literally and figuratively right in front of our noses.
One of the areas the Russians hit, north of Homs, where several factions, including the al-Qaeda affiliate al-Nusra and other anti-Assad groups, are fighting the regime. The State Department trying to defuse rising military tensions between the U.S. and Moscow, but only going so far.
The United States and the coalition will continue our ongoing air operations as we have from the very beginning.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says his military was invited into Syria by Bashar al-Assad, the Russian leader clearly ready to prop up Assad.
We will support the Syrian army only in its legitimate fight specifically against terrorist groups.
For now, little mention of ISIS, the U.S. priority.
Putin's ambitions are blindingly obvious, my friends. He wants to prop up Assad, play kingmaker in any transition, undermine U.S. policy and operations, and ultimately expand Russian power in the Middle East.
A Russian lawmaker says this morning his country's air attacks in Syria could last for 3 or 4 months. Russian warplanes hit targets this morning for a third straight day. Sources inside Syria say the Russians are now attacking areas held by ISIS. Holly Williams is along the Turkey-Syrian border. Holly, good morning.
Good morning. Russia says its airstrikes have destroyed a command center and a training camp in the ISIS stronghold of Raqqa. But 2 days after Moscow began launching strikes in Syria, the U.S. has accused Russia of indiscriminately bombing the Syrian opposition.
Russia says its airstrikes in Syria will only intensify and could last 4 months.
Moscow joined the Syrian civil war, claiming it would target ISIS. Yet many of the Russian airstrikes so far have hit areas well outside of ISIS control. In northern Syria, Russian warplanes have pounded groups linked to Al-Qaeda, but also so-called moderate rebels who are supported by the US. This video, posted on the internet, appears to show the aftermath of a Russian strike on American-backed opposition fighters. Syria's deadly civil war is now even more dangerous, with both the US and Russia launching airstrikes, but supporting different sides. Colonel Abdul Jabbar al-Aqidi is a rebel commander in Syria's US-backed opposition. The Russians are occupiers, he told us. They're attacking anyone who's fighting against the Syrian regime. Yet even as Russian airstrikes target US-backed rebels, Colonel al-Aqidi told us he's given up hope that America will intervene. I don't think President Obama is sincere, he told us. The Americans let us down, and I don't trust them.
US and Russian officials spoke yesterday in an effort to reduce the risk of an accidental collision in Syrian airspace. The Russian President Vladimir Putin will meet in Paris today with the leaders of France and Germany, which have both called for Russia to stop its strikes on Syrian rebels. Nora.
Really interesting reporting, Holly Williams in Turkey. Thank you so much.
الله اكبر دوما 2/10/2015 الله اكبر يا شباب غارات من الطيران الحربي الله اكبر سيق ما في شيء الحمد لله الله اكبر هاتوا نادوا جيب من جوا خذ عمي خذ الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر غارة من الطيران الحربي على فريق المشرفين الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر على مدينة دوما الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر غارة من الطيران الحربي غارة ثانية على فريق المسعفين الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر الله اكبر
Breaking news involving Hurricane Joaquin. The Coast Guard has announced that they are searching for a container ship that is carrying 33 crew members. Now, this all happened yesterday, right during the height of Hurricane Joaquin. This was a 735-foot cargo ship called the El Faro, and it was headed to San Juan, Puerto Rico, from Jacksonville, Florida, when it got caught in the hurricane near Crooked Island, Bahamas. So that's where this has all taken place, and they're continuing this search. Now, I want to show you the radar. This is from yesterday. Hurricane Joaquin was a Category 3 hurricane at this time. That means winds were over 100 miles per hour, and the seas certainly were rough. So this was a volatile situation. We do know that the ship reported water coming in and also some power outages. Now, I want to give you a perspective here of Crooked Island, what it looked like yesterday on land, and certainly you can see that it was terrible conditions. Now, the Coast Guard is going to continue their search today, not only by air, but also by sea, and this remains a very volatile situation.
Woo!
Mass shooting. President Obama is calling on Americans to pressure lawmakers to embrace gun safety legislation. Meantime, local representative argues allowing concealed weapons on campus would make it safer for Florida college campuses. ABC Action News reporter Adam Weiner live this morning, campus of USF. And Adam, a lot going on both sides of this debate. What are students you're hearing from? What are they saying?
Well, they're reacting to a local representative's push to try to push through a bill that would actually allow guns on campuses like here at USF. Obviously, this debate really heated up here in Florida last year after that shooting on the campus of Florida State University up in Tallahassee. State Representative Greg Steube tells us that the shooting in Oregon now has him especially angry once again. He believes that students like those at USF should be allowed to arm themselves and believes that people who want to kill have learned that college campuses are places where people can't defend themselves. Well, ABC Action News spoke with USF students last night after that Oregon shooting. Obviously, it's a very random, unofficial survey, but students on this campus tell us they actually oppose allowing students to have guns here for a lot of reasons, but one in particular is safety from their fellow classmates.
Do you believe that guns should be allowed on campus?
I think that's a difficult issue.
Finals week, midterm weeks coming up, I feel like having that sort of stress would make guns on college campuses way more dangerous.
Now, Representative Greg Steube disagrees. He says that he believes students who passed all the requirements to legally carry a gun are less likely to commit crimes on campus. Now, this is obviously a debate that's been brought to Tallahassee before. Greg Steube says he'll be bringing it there once again in the next session. Live on the campus of USF, Adam Weiner, ABC Action News.
Police shoot a protester in southern Nepal. Shatrughan Patel died on the day Nepal's new constitution was signed, on September the 20th. 45 people, including 10 policemen, have been killed since protests against the constitution began in August. Villagers in Bajrahi in Mohattari district are still grieving the loss of two of their own. 14-year-old Rohan Chaudhary was returning from tuition classes when rights activists say he was shot by police. 2 days later, his grandfather was on his bicycle a few kilometers away buying vegetables. Security forces shot Ganesh Chaudhary too. Binay Chaudhary lost both his father and son.
What do I tell the state? They killed innocent people. Both my son and my father were not protesters. Everyone knew what kind of a person my father was.
Ganesh Chaudhary was recognized by the former king of Nepal for his contributions to the region. 4 more villagers have been injured by police gunfire.
This is an agricultural village, idyllic in many ways, with just around 800 houses. After the deaths, people here say that they have a deep fear of the state, and yet they say they will continue with their protests until the demands are met.
For 50 days across the southern plains, locals called Madhesis have been protesting. They have close family ties across the border in India and say they feel alienated by the Nepali government. They say they are protesting for their dignity, to be treated as equal citizens.
We are not being able to understand what is the reason for turmoil or crisis. The Constitution is for the nation, for the country, for the people. If the rights and opportunities of the people, or the necessity elements like possibilities of development are not secured inside the Constitution. That could be another thing. But everything is there.
To add to Nepal's problems is an unofficial blockade of essential goods across the border from India. The Indian government didn't welcome Nepal's new constitution and issued a statement cautioning political leaders to address the tension in the southern plains. Some Nepali politicians are now blaming India for the lack of goods flowing across the border, and the problems facing the Madhes remains unresolved. Sabina Shrestha, Al Jazeera, Mohattari, Southern Plains of Nepal.